for the very first video of this channel. Today I am going to go over 10 different charts, 3 time frames for each chart, the weekly, the daily, and the 4-hour time frame. So without any more time wasted, let's go ahead and get started. Right now we're looking at EurUsd on the weekly time frame. You see that there is a deep crab pattern drawn out. Our last week's candle, as we zoom in, was a bearish engulfing candle, and I do expect next week to be bearish, probably going to at least retest this trend line, if not break it. We do have a zone drawn right here that we could see resistance that's retesting previous structure. So we might see bearish this coming week and then a bullish rejection off of this zone drawn right here or this trend line, and then a continuation upward. Or if we do see a break of this trend line drawn, then we could see the completion of the deep crab pattern. That completion probably won't happen for a number of weeks from now. You see it did almost complete, but not quite, so that pattern is still in play. Alright, moving on to the daily time frame. The outlook on this is a pretty simple chart, but it really doesn't need to be too complicated. I have 2 zones drawn and a trend line drawn. We've seen EU be bullish for many days now. We do have a little bit of bearish momentum coming out of the latter part of last week. We will probably see a retest of this zone down here, retesting previous structure before continuing upward. However, if it does make this trend line or break and retest this trend line or zone, that would be a good indication that it is going to go bearish. We would need to wait for a break of structure to confirm change in trend direction, but it does look like we will at least get a retest of this zone or of this trend line, if not a totally different trend going forward. EurUsd on the 4-hour time frame, we do have a bat pattern that completed last week. I do expect this to come down and retest this trend line and probably test the zone, rejecting off of it, breaking this trend line to the upside, and then continuing up. But that is not the only thing that could happen. We could get a a break of the trend line here, a break of this zone, and then continuation downwards. So remember, a completion of a pattern does not always mean a reversal. We trade what we see, we trade what the markets give us. So don't always rely on just harmonic pattern completions. So yeah, that's what I'm expecting with EU this week. Alright, now looking at UsdJpY on the 1-week time frame, or the weekly time frame, excuse me, you will see we have a number of zones drawn. We do have a Gartley pattern that is drawn as well. We have a very strong trend line drawn on the bottom and on the top, nice wedge, and as we zoom in, maybe hard to see, you will see that last week's pattern was very bearish. However, it did not engulf the previous weeks, but the previous week's bullish candlestick did not engulf the week before that, so the controlling candle is still bearish. However, as we approach the corner of this wedge, we could see a break in either direction, so just be reactive, right? I'm not predicting one way or the other. We could see bullish or bearish momentum this week. If we do see bearish, I do expect it to break this trend line and retest this trend line and zone drawn before it continues down to complete the Gartley. However, it could just as easily reject off of this trend line and this zone and continue upward to retest or break this trend line or zone drawn above. Alright, looking at UsdJpY on the daily time frame, we do have a bat that completed last week or the end of the week before that, not entirely sure. We should still see some bullish momentum out of this. You can see the double bottom on the zone that's drawn, waiting for a break of the trend line and a retest of the trend line and or the zone before continuing upward, but we should see bullish momentum out of this. However, being reactionary traders, if we do see it break below this zone and retest the zone and then again break below this trend line, that is a good indication that it is going to go bearish, and so you just have to react to what you see. but I do expect this to go bullish to break this trend line that is drawn right here and continue upward. Looking at UsdJpY, the 4-hour time frame, we do have support and resistance level down here that could potentially be broken, and then if that breaks, we'll zoom out so that you can see there is a lot of space down here where UJ could travel to. So if that happens, that's the reason why I don't have any outlined areas where price could go. However, if it does break to the upside, break this trend line that I have drawn, it will probably find some sort of resistance at this zone. If it does break through this zone, then it'll continue upward, and there are levels of resistance up here, stops that it should probably make. This is XauUsd, or gold, on the weekly time frame. We do have a butterfly pattern that is almost completed. However, we did 2 weeks ago have a rejection of this trend line that's drawn, which I'll zoom out so you can see where the trend line is drawn from. And then the previous 2 weeks, last week and the week before last, were also both bearish. We do see the rejection of this zone right here. As I said, the rejection of the trend line. There are a number of different possibilities for this. We could see a retest of the zone and then continue downward. We could see a break and a retest of the trend line to the upside. And then we could see more bearish movement continuing down to retest this trend line drawn at the bottom, where it could react off of that trend line and then, or reject off that trend line, excuse me, and continue upward, or we could see a break and a retest of that and continue downward. So gold is in an interesting spot right now. We should be able to get a better feel for what this is going to do in the coming weeks on lower time frames, but this is just the weekly outlook. Next, we're looking at XauUsd on the daily time frame, otherwise known as gold. Gold does have a bat pattern on the daily time frame that has yet to complete, and I doubt that it does complete this coming week, but it is a good indication that we should expect some bullish movement. If we zoom in a little bit, you will see that we are rejecting off of this zone that I have drawn, and so we should see some bullish momentum waiting for the break of this trend line. However, if it does break through this zone that's drawn, we should see a retest of that zone and or the trend line, and then a continuation down to this trend line that's drawn down here. However, even if that does happen, as long as this trend line down here doesn't break, or this level down here, I should say, doesn't break, then this bat pattern is still in play. So it's still likely that it will complete. Like I said, more than likely will not complete this week, but it's something to be aware of. Now looking at gold, on the 4-hour time frame, we do have a bat pattern that did complete last week. We do have this trend line drawn, so I am expecting this to go bullish, at least reaching this trend line and probably breaking it and then continuing upwards. However, it could reach this trend line and travel back down to this trend line, or it could not even reach this trend line and just break and retest and then continue downward. So remember, just because you have a harmonic completion does not mean that you will see a reversal in the trend. It is likely, but it's not 100% for sure. So make sure that you're trading what you see, or waiting for confirmation in either direction with this. Alright, now we have EurAud on the weekly. We do have a bat pattern drawn that is nearing completion. Price last week closed on this trend line that's drawn, but the week before that was a bullish engulfing candle, very strong bullish candle. So we're in an interesting spot right here. There is a zone drawn. That is the only zone that I have drawn, because above that we only have rejections over here. So we could see a potential in the next couple of weeks completion of this bat pattern. However, it should be noted that we could see bearish movement or rejection off of this trend line this week. However, this bullish candlestick right here is the controlling candle, and until that candlestick is broken, which would result in this trend line right here being broken, I do expect this to continue bullish until at least this pattern is completed, at which point in time we should see a retest of this zone before continuing upward. So it's just there's a couple different outlooks because of the way that the candlestick closed last week, closing right on this trend line So we'll have to kind of wait and see, look at the lower time frames to see what's going to happen going forward. Alright, next is EurAud on the daily time frame. We do have a butterfly pattern. You can see I have a support and resistance level drawn because of the double top right here. I also have the trend line drawn and a zone drawn. I do expect this pattern to complete. It might not complete this week. We could see a rejection of this double top, continue down, retest this trend line before continuing up and completing the pattern. But I do expect this pattern to be completed. However, we could see a break of this trend line down here and a retest of this zone or something of those measures. As long as this area right here, this consolidation area right here, is not broken down below, so that would equate to this zone being broken down below, then I do expect this butterfly pattern to complete relatively soon, within the next few weeks. So that's something to be aware of. But I'm just waiting to see, once the market opens, what it does on this double top right here. Next up is EurAud, the 4-hour time frame, and we do have this consolidation box that I have drawn right here because price has been consolidating inside of here. So what I tend to do in situations like this is I just wait for a breakout of this box. If it breaks to the upside, there is this previous market structure over here. We should see a breakout of the box, a retest of market structure, and then going up. Adversely, we could see the breakout of the bottom of the box, the retest of that structure, and then continue downward to somewhere around these levels, if not this trend line or this trend line down here. We're just waiting, simply waiting for EA to tell us which direction it wants to go. And we're looking at GbpAud. We do have a double top off of this zone drawn. However, last week's candlestick was a rejection of this zone. You can see the week before was a bullish controlling candle, bullish engulfing candle, if you will. So we could see either bullish or bearish momentum this week, judging just off of the weekly time frame. If we do see bearish momentum, we're looking for a break of this trend line drawn. If we do see bullish momentum, we're looking for a break and a retest of this zone and this upper trend line that's drawn. So really could go either direction with this one, something to keep an eye on. However, we do have the double top, which is a good sign for bearish momentum, I should say. Good sign for bearish momentum. Alright, looking at GbpAud on the daily time frame, we have a crab pattern drawn. You can see we have this double top, multiple tests of this zone that I have drawn right here. We do have a bearish engulfing candle coming out of that zone, so that's a strong rejection. We are waiting to see, once the market opens, if it will respect this trend line drawn down here, or if we will just go ahead and break through this this zone that's drawn to complete the crab pattern. So just waiting on candlestick analysis to lead the way in this one. If it does come out bearish, I probably won't sell this until this trend line is broken, because I do anticipate this crab pattern to complete at some point in time in the near future. But you know, we're reactionary, so we'll wait and see what happens. Now looking at GA, we have this. Well, we have these two zones drawn. The price is currently in this zone right here. I do suspect that it will probably break out of this zone to the downside, retest this zone, and then continue downward. The reason for that is because this bearish controlling candle right here is very strong, this engulfing candle. It did break the previous controlling candle, which was this bullish green candle right here. So I do suspect this probably will continue downward. However, if it does hit this trend line down here and react off of it, then we could see more bullish momentum if that happens. We are looking for it to break this previous high over here. So market structure is a factor with this as well. Just something to keep an eye on with GA. Alright, next up is AudUsd. This is a pretty simple chart, but the way that it's drawn out, this is what makes the most sense to me. You can see we have the double top in the zone that's drawn, multiple retests of this zone. We had, not last week, but the week before last, we had a bearish engulfing pattern. You can see that last week was also bearish. And so we're looking at a bearish controlling candle, and last week being bearish. I would expect that this week would also continue to be bearish. However, we could see another retest of this zone. I'm honestly looking for a retest of this trend line in either the coming week, if not next week, then the week after that. But be reactionary. Don't try to predict the markets. React to what you see. Alright, looking at AUD/USD, this is a pretty simple chart, only one trend line and two zones drawn, but this paints the picture pretty dang well. We have a lot of respect on this zone that's drawn right here, and that's where price has approached. So we're waiting to see if price is going to reject this zone after a very, very strong week last week of bearish movement. We're just waiting to see if the bearish movement is going to continue, or are we going to see a rejection of the zone. Let's go ahead and draw a retracement to see where we are in terms of Fibonacci. And we have not reached the 61.8 yet, so that probably will be reached. And if it is broken and we see a retest of this zone, then it will continue down to this trend line that has also been touched a few times. So market structure is still up. Right, we're seeing higher highs and higher lows. This is a double top on multiple tests of this this zone drawn up here, but it's hard to tell what AUD/USD is going to do because of this really strong bearish momentum that happened last week. So I would wait and see at least what the first few days of this new trading week is going to do, whether it's going to respect this zone and go up, or if it's going to break through this zone and continue down. If you are in active trades, you can hold the trades that you're in, albeit they're probably sells. You probably have sell orders open from all this bearish movement last week. I would close those orders if you see a strong rejection to the 61.8, or if the bullish momentum comes out really strong, we get a strong engulfing candle in the start of this week. Now looking at AUD/USD on the 4-hour time frame, price is relatively close to this trend line that I have drawn. It is also relatively close to this this zone that I have drawn. You will notice that this trend line that I have here is not actually a trend line because it doesn't have any connecting points. So what we're looking for with this is what I call a reference line, because this steep drop that AU had last week, I typically don't draw trend lines when drops or rises are that steep, because it's easily broken, and so I use this as a reference line, and I wait until a retracement, an actual retracement happens, and then I will rearrange this trend line once that happens to better suit it. But for right now, we're just waiting to see if AU is going to continue its drop from last week. So we're waiting to see if this line right here, this trend line right here, is broken. If it is, wait for a retest of that level, and then it should continue downward. We're waiting for candlestick analysis on that. If it does respect this trend line and continue to go upward, I would be aware that it is probably a retracement. Not necessarily though. Let's see where this is Fibonacci wise. We are approaching the 61.8. It is below that trend line, so there's just something to be aware of, right? We could see bullish or bearish movement on AU this week. Just wait for candlestick analysis off of any of these trend lines or any of the Fibonacci levels. Alright, next up is GbpUsd. Looking at GbpUsd, let me zoom out. The reason why I have this horizontal line drawn, the support and resistance level right here, is because it touches from way back here. But we'll zoom back in. This is a pretty simple chart. I have a couple of trend lines drawn. You can see the break and the retest of this trend line, and then I redrew this one, sort of like a fan, if you will. So we have the touch right there. We have this bearish engulfing candle from last week. I would anticipate this going bearish again this week. It doesn't have to, but judging off of what we see from candlestick analysis, I would expect this to be bearish this coming week, until at least we reach this trend line. of which you could see it respect and then continue bullish, or we get a break and a retest and a continued downward. Just something to be aware of, but this bearish engulfing candle is a good sign. Alright, next up is GbpUsd on the daily time frame. We do have a bat pattern, albeit an ugly bat pattern, but it's still valid. That completes relatively close to where price is right now. You'll see I have this horizontal line drawn just to represent this market structure to the left. I think it's probably more likely that we'll get a retest of the more recent market structure, which is what this zone is indicating right here, before we continue upward. But that is just something to be aware of. We could see a reversal come off of this this market structure base over here instead of coming all the way down to the zone. I do expect this to continue upwards, though. You can see that this has been trending upwards, higher highs and higher lows for the past few weeks. So it's just something to be aware of, that we might get a little bit of bearish movement at the beginning of the week, but I do expect this to conclude bullish going forward. And next we're looking at GbpUsd on the 4-hour time frame. You will see I have this trend line drawn, I have this one drawn, and I have a bat pattern that has not completed yet, but it does complete almost exactly where this trend line is drawn at, which is a good sign. So I will be looking for this bat pattern to complete on this trend line, and then I will wait and see if it breaks this trend line and retests it, because that is an indication that it will continue downward. If it respects this trend line and does what pattern completions usually do, it will retrace, in which case I will wait for it to break this trend line, retest it, and then continue upward. So that's what we're looking at with GbpUsd. It looks good for this week. Alright, next up is GbpNzd on the weekly time frame. We do have a bat pattern that is drawn, and it is still in play. However, we do have this trend line drawn, multiple touches. We do have a bearish engulfing candle from last week. So it is likely that we will see bearish movement again this week. Not necessarily 100% set in stone. Remember, the markets can do whatever they want, but it is likely, because we have that reversal pattern, that strong bearish engulfing pattern, that we would see bearish movement. However, we could see a retest of this trend line, if not a retest of this zone that's drawn. So just be reactive, like I've been saying. React to the market, react to what the market is giving you. However, I do think that this should continue to go bearish this week. Alright, looking at GbpNzd, you'll notice that I do not have any zones drawn. We'll add one horizontal line in here. Price will probably come down and touch this horizontal line, which matches up with a trend line that I have drawn pretty dang well, and then continue bullish. I do have a bat pattern drawn here that is valid. That completes, it will more than likely not complete this month. It may complete towards the end of the month. It'll probably be next month before this completes, unless it gets invalidated, which would have to break below this level, the C level. So we're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with GN. We'll either see a break of this support and resistance level and this trend line right here, or we'll see a break of this trend line above it. Price is pretty well captured right now, so we're just waiting for a breakout in either direction. Now looking at GN on the 4-hour time frame, GN has this extremely strong bearish engulfing candle right here coming into a zone that we have drawn. So we could see bearish or bullish movement because of this zone. I do expect it to be bearish because of that controlling candle, and I will not be buying this until that controlling candle is broken. And once that controlling candle breaks, it will more than likely be close to this trend line, so I will wait for that instead. However, if it does break this zone that I have drawn to the downside and then retest it, I would be comfortable selling it until this trend line, in which case I would wait for what happens once it reaches that area. Alrighty, next up is EurJpy. We do have a crab pattern that is drawn. You can see I drew this support and resistance level because of the multiple touches over here, and the 3 touches that are over here. So that is a strong support and resistance level. And we do have a very strong bearish engulfing candle from last week that did break this upward trend line. That might be a little bit difficult to see. Let's change the color of this really quickly so you can see it better. So there's the trend line that I was referring to. It did break that trend line. We should be looking for a retest and then a continuation down this week. However, we could see something as extreme as a bullish engulfing candle where it closes back above this drawn trend line. And if that does happen, then next week we will redraw this trend line to accompany or account for that. But yes, I do expect, because of how strong this bearish engulfing candle is, I do expect this to continue its bearish movement down next week. Alright, now looking at EurJpY on the daily time frame, we have a valid crab pattern that is nearing completion. However, we do have this trend line drawn with a break and a retest. I'll zoom in so you can see the retest, the break, and then the retest of the next candle. But it also did get very, very close to hitting this zone. So we're kind of just waiting to see, what is this going to do. I can see this going bearish or bullish. The pattern is indicating that we should expect it to go bullish. However, the break and the retest of the trend line is telling us that we should see this continue to go bearish. We could see it just bounce off of this this zone that's drawn and then continue upward, in which case we'll just redraw some trend lines. We will probably see some resistance once it reaches this zone above, but I do expect this pattern to complete because it has been trending upwards for quite some time. The past few weeks have been just consolidating, and that's what this indicates right here to me, is that this has just been consolidating, slowly moving upward, but consolidating nonetheless. And so I would be aware that this pattern is valid and that it should complete. However, also being aware that we could see bearish momentum before that pattern completes. Now looking at EJ on the 4-hour time frame, EurJpY, we have this consolidation zone that I was talking about earlier right here. It did break out to the upside, give us a higher high, higher low, another higher high, and now we're looking at a lower low, which to me signals that EJ is not really sure what it wants to do. So I will be staying away from EJ this week until it gives me a stronger sense of which direction it wants to go market structure wise. But these are some outcomes that you could see from EJ: breakout of the top, retest of this zone drawn, and then a continuation upward. And this is the bottom of the consolidation zone, so you could see a break and then a retest of that area and then a drop. So really could see it either way with EJ this week, and I will probably be staying away from this pair. And now we have AudNzd on the weekly time frame. As you can see, I do have the 61.8 retracement drawn. We do have two previous weeks both being bearish. I do expect this price to reach the 61.8 retracement before going upward. However, we could see more of a retracement, the 61.8 just being the strongest of the retracement levels. We could see retracement all the way back down to this trend line and even see a break and close below this trend line, which would indicate that the bears are still in control. As you can see, AudNzd was bearish for a very long time, and we've kind of been in this this consolidation zone right here for the past few months, or a few years even. So just kind of waiting to see what AudNzd has planned, whether it's going to continue its movement upwards. As you can see, it has been trending upwards until this trend line down here is broken. I would still continue or consider this to be trending upwards. However, that is a possibility. This trend line down here can be broken. I will not trade this long term until this support and resistance level right here is broken to the upside. But that is AudNzd on the weekly. And lastly, for the daily time frames, we're looking at AudNzd. AudNzd has a bat pattern on it. This bat pattern is kind of ugly, but it's still valid, and it should complete this week. I do expect it to complete. You can see this trend line that I have drawn broke and retested multiple times. That's a good indication that we should see continued bearish movement, at least until we get to this area where the pattern will complete. Once the pattern completes, I do think that it should probably go bullish and retest this trend line up here. So that's something to be aware of. AudNzd looks good for this coming week for that reason. So this is something to keep on your radar, if nonetheless. And finally, looking at AudNzd on the 4-hour time frame, we are sitting on a trend line that I have drawn. So we will wait to see what price opens up as. If price does open up below this trend line, we would look for a retest of it, and then these are some of the levels that it could hit on its way down. However, if it does open above this trend line and stays above it, then I would expect it to break this trend line, come back down, retest it, and then continue upward, probably to this trend line up here. That's what we're looking at with AudNzd for this week. That being said, this is the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Also, if you have any charts that you want me to go over from week to week, I will be doing EU, UJ, Gold, EA, and GA every single week, but the other 5 pairs I would like my watchers to decide. So they will change from week to week. If you have something that you would like to see charted up, the weekly, the daily, and the 4-hour, drop a comment or send me a message on Telegram. I will leave all of my Telegram contact information in the description below. If you have any other questions, please feel free to hit me up on there. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, right? Like and subscribe, support the channel. I do have a lot of stuff that is in the works that's coming up, but I wanted to get this project started. So this will be a weekly basis. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys.